Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Commissioner's Couch podcast. So go ahead, take a seat, kick up your feet, grab a drink, and we're going to talk fantasy football. So our weekly podcast is sponsored by Inside Edge Network, LVP Productions, and Mosser Moments Photography, a husband and wife photography company based out of Cleveland, Ohio. So normally my best friend Ryan Mosser's in these podcasts. Unfortunately, this is week number 2 in a row, but he's not able to make it. Got some personal things going on. But yeah, he will be back as soon as possible. So you're stuck with me again for another week, and I hope that you all enjoy it because I got some good things and some hot takes coming up this episode, and so I hope that you like it. Um, so yeah, real quickly, I'm just gonna repost this so that way everybody knows that they should come and listen on the X or the YouTube, and I will try and keep the comments up to date as well. So yeah, hope you all had a good week. The football world and the NFL world was wild this past week. There's a lot that happened. And before we really jump into a lot of things, I'm going to talk through the injury report. So let me pull that up real fast. I had it pulled up and then my computer crashed. So here we go. All right. So a lot of these same names you'll see from last week are back on here. So started with the quarterbacks as always. Jaden Daniels is still dealing with that elbow injury. He played last week. Didn't really do too well in all honesty. But he has already been ruled out for this upcoming week. And we'll see how it happens beyond because their record's not good. And what are they really playing for? I don't know. So Jaden Daniels should just shut it down and get healthy, in my opinion. Next is Daniel Jones, tore his Achilles. I mean, it was just an awful injury. I feel bad for them, for Daniel Jones, the whole Colts organization, the fans. Like, they were just so excited about this year and doing so well, and it just all kind of came apart those last few weeks and came to a head with that Achilles injury. And so Daniel Jones is out for the season. I don't know what's going to happen to him in the future. Dynasty outlook is probably not looking that great. I would assume the Colts would want to bring him back, but I don't even know if he'll be ready at the start of next season. So there's a lot of unknown there, but you kind of feel bad for him because he was just playing so well and really wanting to get that next contract. And so it's a bummer, but yeah, that's life in the NFL, I guess. Riley Leonard has a knee injury. He's questionable for this week. I think he will probably end up starting for the Colts this week because their only other option is 44-year-old. What is his name? I cannot think of his name. Wow. Anyway, the guy that just is a granddad at this point. 44-year-old quarterback that used to play for the Chargers. What? Why can I not think of his name? That's embarrassing. Philip Rivers. There it is. Thank you. All right. So, yeah, Riley Leonard, I think he'll probably start. I don't know if he'll be fantasy relevant, but he was probably going to play. Trevor Lawrence still dealing with that ankle injury. Should be probable for this week. Tyrod Taylor has a groin injury. Probably not going to play this week, but listed as questionable. Justin Herbert has that hand injury still. Really not looking like himself, and you can definitely tell it's bothering him. But yeah, he will probably tough it out and play again because they are fighting for their playoff lives right now. Geno Smith has a shoulder injury, is looking doubtful for this week. I doubt that he'll play. I think they will probably give Kenny Pickett the nod, even if Geno is healthy, just because they are looking to see what happens. And Kenny Pickett kind of looked good to close out the last game. So we'll see what happens, but that's the quarterbacks for this week. Running backs, we have Devin Achane has a rib injury. He'll probably play, but listed as questionable right now. Alvin Kamara still dealing with that knee injury, listed as questionable. I think he will probably miss this week, but then we'll come back the week after that. But we'll see. Devin Neal for the Saints has an abdominal injury. He's also listed as questionable. Tyrone Tracy has a hip injury, listed as questionable. Nick Chubb has a rib injury, listed as questionable. Keaton Mitchell has a knee injury, will be probable. I think he played last week a little bit. I think it was on a snap count, but I think he'll play again this week. Amari DiMercado still dealing with that ankle injury, is also listed as probable. Trey Benson is out for the season, put on IR recently. Chris Rodriguez has a groin injury, is listed as questionable, and Jerome Ford was put on IR recently as well, but he was really not doing anything for fantasy anyway, so not that crazy. Wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys is in the concussion protocol. Hit his head pretty hard there in that last game. I don't know how long he'll be out, but he was probably out for this upcoming week. T. Higgins, this one's really interesting. He is out with a concussion. He's not ruled out yet, but he probably will be out for this upcoming Sunday. It was interesting because he sustained the head injury earlier in the game. They checked him. Evidently, he got the okay to go back in. And then after the game, he was put on the injury report for a concussion. So I don't know what's going on with the Bengals there with that specific incident, but kind of not a good look if he got a concussion earlier on in the game, but then went back in, caught a touchdown, played decently well, and then now is not going to play because of a concussion. So I don't know what's going on there. Just looks a little weird. Drake London still dealing with his knee injury, has already been ruled out for this week, so that's a big one to monitor because we are now in the playoff push. Marvin Harrison Jr. still dealing with that knee injury. He's heel injury, sorry. He's questionable for this week. Garrett Wilson has a knee injury. He's on IR, still listed as out. Mike Evans, collarbone. He is looking to come back this week. I hope that he plays because the Bucs definitely need him. Roma Dunze has a foot injury. He did not play last week. I think he will play this week, but we'll see. Parker Washington has a hip injury. He also did not play last week. We'll see about this week. DK Metcalf has a stomach bug. We'll see what happens. Chris Godwin Jr. has a leg injury, and we'll see what happens with that one, listed as questionable. So tight ends, a couple of big injuries here. So Zach Ertz sustained a really bad knee injury, really just a whole leg injury is probably a better way to say it, but he's out for the season. And honestly, that's kind of probably a career-ending type of an injury at his age. He's been playing really well last year and to start this year, and so just a bummer that that's how it's going to end for him. But yeah, just got to hope that he recovers and maybe has another year in him, but it does not look good. David Njoku has a knee injury listed as questionable. Kyle Pitts has a knee injury listed as questionable. Cade Otton has a knee injury listed as questionable. Darnell Washington for the Steelers has a concussion listed as questionable, and Elijah Arroyo has a knee injury listed as questionable. So that is everybody that we have. Sam Laporta has that back injury. He has a very slim chance to return. Sorry, I forgot this one. I skipped over it. But yeah, Sam Laporta has a small chance that he could play, but I think it's very doubtful. He's listed as questionable. So that was the injury report. Hope that you all enjoyed it. Yeah, I've seen a lot worse injuries on the injury report, but it's getting to that point in the season where teams that are no longer playing for anything kind of are just starting to shut guys down. I think that's what's happening a lot with the Bengals specifically. T. Higgins maybe just be shutting down for the season. They're really not going anywhere. We saw it with Trey Hendrickson too for the Bengals, just shutting them down. But there's our other teams that are still playing for a lot, and so we'll talk more about that as we move into it. But we'll get into our first segment that we like to call our hunks and our skunks. So last week, I honestly don't have my notes from last week, so I can't tell you who I picked and who I didn't. But yeah, I will give you my hunks for this week. The first one that I have is Harold Fannin Jr. He has just emerged as the ultimate weapon for the Cleveland Browns. At this point, he is our leading receiver, our leading touchdown scorer, our leading really everything. So at this point, he's a valuable asset for tight ends here in the now in this season, but also for dynasty and for longer term fantasy outlook. He is just a stud. I love him. His yards after the catch, his ability to break tackles and gain yards through contact. Like, he is just looking like a beast. And now that David Njoku's kind of dealing with that knee injury that he sustained on that touchdown catch, I think the sky's the limit for him. And if you have him in your league and you're going into the playoffs, you have to start him at this point. He is just as advertised plus more. Like, he's just going to be the main focal point for that offense moving forward, is somebody that Shedeur Sanders has really focused on and relied on a lot. Speaking of Shedeur Sanders, he's my hunk number 2. He is somebody that last week, even though the Browns lost, has really emerged as somebody who just is showing a lot of poise, guts, gamer, and just talent and accuracy. He really emerged late in that game, came back, really put the Browns into place to win it, and due to some unfortunate coaching, wasn't on the play to try and tie the game and should have been. But yeah, I hate to see that, but he's just balling out and doing everything that he can to show that the Browns and the NFL that he is a viable franchise QB. So at this point, I said a few weeks ago, pick him up and just stash him. At this point, I think it's a good bet that you can start him now. He's really, really emerging, and he scored, I think it was like 46 fantasy points last week, and so definitely somebody who's doing really, really well. So that brings us to our skunks. I only got 2 this week. One of them is a quarterback, so we'll jump into that one, and that would be Tua Tagovailoa. Somebody who was a league winner a couple of years ago, actually. Somebody that, despite the record, has not been playing that well. Last week, he scored 12.35 fantasy points, was the quarterback 22, went 13 of 21 for 127 yards. Threw 1 touchdown, no picks, but still not great, not very efficient, not really somebody who's going to help you win games down the stretch here in the playoffs, and somebody that I think I would just start avoiding at this point. It is encouraging to see that the team keeps winning, but I think that has more to do with Devin Achane than it does with anything else in the offense. Tua looks competitive. He looks gutsy, and I like that, but the talent's not there. The separation from wide receivers really aren't there, and I think that Tua without Tyreek is really just struggling at this point. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. He could be a buy low candidate for some dynasty leagues this offseason, but for right now, it's just something that's worth monitoring as we close up the season and see how he progresses. Maybe that team could be a sneaky playoff team. I doubt it, but you never know. But yeah, we'll watch what happens with Tua. And then my last skunk that I got for this week would be Zay Flowers, somebody who personally I had a ton of hope for going into the season. And I think because of just a bunch of injuries and other things going on in that team and organization, he's just going to kind of been somebody who has been fallen through the fantasy world. Last week he did play really well, so I will give him credit there. He was a wide receiver 8 on the week, had 8 catches for 124 yards, so really good and efficient there. But the weeks before that, he was a wide receiver 101 with a negative 1.4 points. Wide receiver 30 with 8.4 points, wide receiver 21 with 9 points, and just kind of been a very lukewarm player. And so I at this point would still hold him. I'm still not convinced that I would start him yet for the playoffs, but he is somebody that could show up in a big game. He would just either be a very boom or bust player, and so if you're kind of like that last seed in the playoff spots and you just need somebody to really come in and hit the moonshot for you, this could be Zay Flowers, but otherwise I would just kind of stay away from him. So there you have it, my hunks and skunks for the weeks. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know who are some of your hunks and your skunks this week. I want to know who you're really buying and hyping up for the playoffs and who you're kind of fading and like not believing in. Because I think there's a lot that we can learn from each other, and I want to hear from you. So go ahead and leave your comments. So this brings us into our next segment, segment 2, that we like to call Fantasy Fireworks. So this is where we pick a game every week to talk about that will produce a lot of fantasy football points. And I have to say, even though I don't have my notes from last week, I do remember who I picked, and I absolutely crushed this one. I picked the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Buffalo Bills last week, and it was explosive. I mean, talk about a game that went back and forth and back and forth. The final score was 39-34. The Bills won. And I mean, there was just so many players that just exploded for points. So Josh Allen had 46 fantasy points. Joe Burrow had 32. Chase Brown had 17. T. Higgins had 24. And Dawson Knox had 14. So there was just a lot of really good players that played well in this game. And I mean, obviously, Josh Allen is really just MVP candidate at this point for the NFL, but I've just been blown away by how good that game was and how many players scored. And if you had them and you started them, guess what? You probably got into the playoffs if you were trying to get into your playoffs because of that. And so congratulations. I hope this next Fantasy Fireworks matchup helps you out in the playoffs because one of these teams is still in it. And that would be the Buffalo Bills. They are traveling to New England to play the Patriots. That's right. My Week 15 matchup for Fantasy Fireworks would be the Bills going to the Patriots. It's a AFC East. Wow. Thank you. AFC East rivalry game. This is a huge one too, with a lot of playoff implications for the NFL on the line. So I think both of these teams are really going to be wanting it, fighting for it hard. I think the New England Patriots are coming off of their bye week, which is so weird to say that there was a Week 14 bye. And I think that a lot of that is going to be helpful for them and their offense. TreVeyon Henderson should do really well. Drake May should do really well. Stefon Diggs, I think, will be really good coming off of the restful week. And they're coming from and they're going to play against a team that was the Buffalo Bills that just really had a tough matchup from the Bengals, and I think that they will score a lot of points and it'll be neck and neck. Both of these teams are really trying to win the AFC East championship, and so I expect there to be a lot of points. Let it be a close game, maybe even an overtime game. I'm calling it now. It probably will go into overtime. If it happens, I expect a lot of people to shout me out about that. But yeah, I expect a lot of points, a lot of touchdowns. Josh Allen just going to carry his team again, and yeah, it should be good. Khalil Shakir should be good. Both of those tight ends, Knox and Kincaid, and James Cook. Honestly, could be a really good weapon for them. So yeah, all those players that I just mentioned: Stefon Diggs, TreVeyon Henderson, Drake May, Josh Allen, Khalil Shakir, James Cook. Start them. I think that they will be ready and going and just be an explosive team. So there you have it. That was my fantasy fireworks for this week. So our next segment is one that we like to call the long shot lineup. Last week, I'm going to try and remember who I had, so stick with me. But I do believe I had Sam Darnold as the quarterback for the long shot lineup, who did pretty well. I think I also had Chris Rodriguez, I think, for the running back. Didn't do too well. The Commanders are just really falling apart and losing their identity, and so I don't really know what to make of that. And then the only other player that I remember that I picked was Devon Vele from the Saints. I want to say I picked somebody else from the Bills, but I don't remember. So yeah, all in all, not a great long shot lineup week. In all honesty, I'm not very good at this segment. This is where Mosser really shines. He finds good diamonds in the roughs and good matchups for players. And so I would rely on him for this one. But I'll give you my take anyway, just to see how it goes. But for week 13, I have, for the long shot lineup, emphasis on long shot, I'm going to go with Cam Ward at the quarterback position. I know I've picked him over and over and over again, but at this point, I'm just going to keep going until he hits. Last week, I didn't pick him, and he looked decently good against the Browns. Threw for a couple touchdowns. I think only had one turnover, maybe none, if I remember correctly. But yeah, looked pretty good, pretty efficient, and played really competitively. I think he was outshined by Shedeur Sanders, but he still looked like an actual NFL quarterback, and it was encouraging to see. And so I expect them to do the same type of things that they did last week and build upon it against a San Francisco team that is also fighting for their playoff lives. Could be a bad matchup for Cam Ward. Could be a good one. We'll see. So yeah, I expect him to just continue throwing the heck out of the ball. I think they should run the ball a lot because that's really what helped that Tennessee offense a lot last week. But we'll see what happens. I expect them to throw it a lot because that 49ers run defense is really good. So Cam Ward, quarterback for the long shot lineup. My first running back that I've got would be Dylan Sampson, the running back for the Cleveland Browns. As I mentioned earlier, Jerome Ford just went to the IR. Really, I don't think this Browns team is looking to keep Jerome Ford part of the future of this organization anymore. And I think they're really focusing on getting a ton of these young rookies ready to go and carry the load next year for the team. And I think a big part of that is going to be Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson has just shown to be a very, very efficient player, both in the run and the pass game. When he's had his touches, he has really exploded for the run. He has shown that he can definitely carry the rock well and find good holes and create space and break tackles. He's only like 22 years old, so it's really encouraging to see that. And I think that last week we saw Shedeur Sanders threw him the ball 6 times for 60-something yards, and I think that that's just going to continue. A lot of these rookies for the Browns are really going to become the focal point, and I think Dylan Sampson being that catch dual threat back is going to be a huge part of this offense moving forward. And at this point, I think it's worth picking him up, stashing him, and maybe even starting him, seeing what happens down the playoffs, because I think he will be really good for this offense. So yeah, Dylan Sampson, I'd start him. Browns are going up against a Bears team that's really good against the run, but really bad against running backs in the pass game. So I expect Dylan Sampson to get a lot of screen passes, get a lot of swing screens, flares, other plays like that, and just do really well. And so I'm excited to see what happens. My first wide receiver that I have is actually somebody that I picked 2 weeks ago, and I should have picked this week, but I didn't. But that would be Christian Watson for the 49ers. Somebody that just exploded onto the scene last week. He looks like everything that he was advertised to be, and I'm really excited to see what happens. Jaden Reed is getting healthy again for that offense. That offense is really looking well and coming off of a huge win against the Bears. And I expect Christian Watson to continue being a focal point for that passing offense. It should be somebody that demands a lot of attention, a lot of targets, but also can take some deep shots down the field with that speed that he has. And so Christian Watson, I think, is worth a start at this point and seeing what happens. But yeah, that's my first wide receiver that I've got. My second wide receiver that I have is Luther Burden, actually. Somebody who has stepped up in the absence of Rome Odunze the last week. Somebody who got a lot of targets and has developed a really good chemistry with Caleb Williams. I think this week, as they're going up against a Cleveland Browns team that has usually been pretty stout against the pass, I think that Luther Burden might just be able to break some deep plays and get open down the field and find some open spots. This Browns team is really based upon their defense, and I think that this defense could shut down the Bears offense, but if they don't, I expect players like Luther Burden and Colston Loveland to have a really good game. Speaking of Colston Loveland, that was my tight end for the long shot lineup as well. Colston Loveland has really become a huge focal point for that offense. Somebody that has been relied upon time and time again to get first downs, to get touchdowns, be a weapon in the red zone. I believe in the last 5 weeks he's caught 4 touchdowns, so done a pretty good job in the red zone and being efficient there and scoring the ball. And I expect that to continue down the stretch. This Bears team is really fighting for their lives and for the playoffs, and I expect Colston Loveland to be a huge part of that playoff push for them. So, yeah, that is my long shot lineup. But let me know what you think in the comments. Am I too heavy on the Bears? Am I too much of a believer in Cam Ward? I don't know. But let me know what you think in the comments, and yeah, we will see how it goes next week. I'm usually not too good at this segment, but I'm hopeful that my luck can change. All right, so legacy lineup. I did go back and watch this one earlier, so that way I know who I picked, and I actually feel like I did pretty well. So last week I picked Bo Nix as the quarterback for the legacy lineup, and then I picked Breece Hall as the running back, Davante Adams as wide receiver, and Tyler Warren as the tight end. Really, all of these were pretty good hits except for Davante Adams. The 1 week that he doesn't score a touchdown is the week that I picked to put him in my daily lineup. So the legacy lineup is really helpful for daily fantasy sports. This is not betting advice. I'm not encouraging anybody to go and bet, but if you do this type of stuff, hopefully this type of segment can help you target some specific players that have good key matchups that will do really well. So my first pick at quarterback for this week, week 15, is Josh Allen. I mean, the dude is just unstoppable right now. He is a force to be reckoned with, coming off of a huge win last week, going up against a huge rival this week. I expect that this Bills team to just really go all out and let Josh Allen just play. He's going to put his heart into this game. He's going to put everything that he's got. I expect him to throw for at least 2 touchdowns and run for 2. If he doesn't score more than 30 points, I honestly will be disappointed. I think that this Patriots team, especially the defense, is one that can definitely be exploited by a quarterback that's as talented as Josh Allen, and I expect them to do really well. And so, Josh Allen, if you've got him, I would target him and start him this week. It's going to be a huge help when your playoff push, and this matchup's going to be huge for that. And so, Josh Allen, you should start him. My running back that I have is none other than Quinshon Judkins. I know that I'm pretty excited about the Browns right now, because it looks like we found our franchise quarterback. We'll see. But I think Quinshon Judkins is going to be somebody that benefits a lot from the absence of Jerome Ford. The Browns really love Quinshon Judkins. I don't know what happened on that last 2-point conversion play. There was some sort of confusion and mix-up with Quinshon. But I still expect this Browns offense to really rely on him in the red zone. He is somebody that runs that Wildcat offense. gets that direct snap and just runs right into the end zone. And so I expect him to get a lot of touchdowns this week against a Bears team that is usually pretty stout against the run. But the weather's going to be nasty. It's going to be really windy and cold. I expect the Browns to just rely and feed Quinshon Judkins the ball a lot this week. And so we'll see what happens, but I'm expecting big things. My wide receiver that I have is none other than a player that I've loved this whole season, Jackson Smith-Njigba. He has just been absolutely electric. The Seahawks are just on fire right now, and I'm not doubting them to potentially make it to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl at this point. They look that good. Yeah, a huge part of that is because of Jackson Smith-Njigba. And so there's a good chance that he could just be exploding again this week. I forget who their matchup is. I had it earlier and then I forgot it. Give me 1 second. The Colts. That's why I picked them. The Colts have a really good team, but they are falling apart, and I think this is a great prime time for the Seahawks to go and jump in and really just beat up on a team that's down and just get a win and move on. And so I think if they can do that and have somebody like Jackson Smith-Njigba just pick on that team and really beat the hope out of them to some degree, I think it could be a good motivated swing game for the Seahawks to get 11 wins and just really compete for that top spot in the NFC playoff picture. So Jackson Smith-Njigba, you should start him. And my tight end that I've got this week is none other than Brock Bowers. All right, so Brock Bowers has been on a tear lately. He's doing really, really well, and it looks like they're going to switch the quarterback. As I mentioned earlier, Geno Smith is dealing with a shoulder injury. I don't know if he's going to play this week or not, but I still, even if he is given the green light to go and play, I still expect them to start Kenny Pickett. I think this offense needs something to change and needs a little bit of a spark, and I think Kenny Pickett might be able to provide that for them in all honesty. And I think a big part of that is because of what you saw at the end of the game with Kenny Pickett specifically targeting Brock Bowers. He looked very efficient, very, very positive, and looked pretty good. So I expect Brock Bowers to continue scoring multiple touchdowns a game, being a focal point for that offense. And just looking like the beast that he is. So start him if you have him. He's just that good. Otherwise, find somebody else, maybe like, I don't know, Harold Fannin. All right, but that is the legacy lineup. I hope that it helps you win this week. But if not, let me know what you think and let me know who you pick. There's plenty of players this week that have good matchups, and we'll see what happens. All right, so I need some water because I'm talking a lot. That's better. Okay. So we'll get into our last segment that we have. This is the sleepers and the creepers. This is one of my personal favorites. Players that you should pick up in fantasy leagues because they are doing really well or because there's a lot of hype around them right now. And then there's also players that you should probably avoid. So we'll start with talking about who we talked about last week. Kenzie, yeah, I don't know if you should follow that logic. I think the Cleveland Browns defense is good. They just had a bad week last week. I think you should start them. I like them a lot. Myles Garrett's going to break that sack record. It's going to be good. All right, so sleepers and creepers. Last week, I gave you the advice to add 2 people to your starting lineup. A.D. Mitchell, he had 1.3 million ads last week. Looked pretty good. This week really didn't do much, but I think that's more so just the Jets' offense as a whole and not so much of a him problem. And the second player was somebody that I was really proud of because he dominated. And so that would be Blake Corum. He just absolutely exploded onto the scene last week. Let me see if I can pull up his stats. He had 12 carries for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was the running back 3 on the week, scoring 25 points on 12 carries. All I'm saying is if you listen to me, I think that you probably got into your playoffs for your fantasy football league. I know there was somebody that tweeted to me on X about starting Blake Corum, and they did really well and got into their playoffs. And so I hope that was more of you that did that too, because Blake Corum might be a league winner this year. He just looks that good, that talented, that efficient, and that explosive. So yeah, congrats if you started him. If not, I hope that you listen in this week. But let me talk about my creepers from last week. Last week I talked about Andrei Iosivas, somebody who's become irrelevant at this point. And then Emmanuel Wilson, somebody that had a lot of hype, but I never understood why, because this Packers team doesn't really want to focus on the run game. They are really just pass heavy at this point, and Jordan Love looks really good. So I never understood the hype around that. So this week, I've got 2 players for you to choose who to start with. First one is wide receiver Ryan Flournoy for the Dallas Cowboys. This is a sleeper, my bad, that I think will do really, really well down the stretch. As we talked about earlier, CeeDee Lamb has his concussion. As soon as he went out of the game, Ryan Flournoy came in and just kind of became the number 1 wide receiver, which is kind of concerning if you're a George Pickens owner because he was that good. He ended up the game having 9 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown, scoring 22 points on the week, being the wide receiver 6. He looks dynamic and explosive. He looks good. He looks comfortable in that offense. He's got that natural chemistry with Dak Prescott, and I think Ryan Flournoy could be a good player to have down the stretch here for fantasy football. If you have him, you definitely got to start him. If not, you definitely got to pick him up. He is the number 1 trending player right now on Sleeper with over 800,000 ads this week alone. So if he's available, go pick him up because he is actually available in, let me see here. He's only owned in 52% of leagues right now, so he should be decently available. I would go pick him up. Maybe not start him, but definitely pick him up if you're in the playoffs. That brings me to my second player, and that would be Shedeur Sanders, baby. Come on. I said this a few weeks ago. Shedeur Sanders is somebody you're going to want to pick up and stash on your team. And look what happened last week. He exploded and had his breakout game and looks like a quality franchise quarterback. He ended up being the quarterback 2 for fantasy football this week alone. He ended up throwing 23 of 42 for 3 touchdowns and 364 yards. Not to mention, he also ran a touchdown in. He ended up scoring 42 fantasy points total and was just absolutely dominant. I expect these last 4 weeks of the season to be the absolute Shedeur Sanders show for the Cleveland Browns, and I don't think you're going to want to miss it. He is absolutely improving the entire offense around him. He's making every player play better because of that. Harold Fannin is a great example. Jerry Jeudy caught a huge 66-yard touchdown pass from Shedeur Sanders. One of the bright spots that we were missing. And so I think Shedeur Sanders looks composed, confident, like the actual guy that the Cleveland Browns have been looking for. So if you got him, go pick him up. If you got him, start him. If not, go pick him up. He is owned in 89% of the league, so at this point you might have missed the boat. But he is somebody that I'm just absolutely sold on as a quarterback and somebody that's going to be fantasy relevant for a while, especially these next 4 weeks. So I hope that helps. Those are my top 2 sleepers this week. So that brings me to my top 2 creepers. One of them, at this point, I would say you just cut, and it's really going to be a hot take, but that would be Lamar Jackson. I've said this for a few weeks now. He's just not himself. I don't know if it's still the injury. I don't know if it's still the toe or the ankle, the knee. I don't know what it is, but he is just not himself. Yes, he ran in a touchdown last week and scored a couple of points. I don't think he was really anything all that great, but I'm going to pull up his stats for everybody so we can all look at it. He was also robbed of a touchdown at the end of the game too, which was crazy. Lamar Jackson ended up having 24 points on the week and throwing 19 of 35 for 1 touchdown, 1 pick. So, yeah, not great. At this point, I wouldn't start him. In fact, I would even consider cutting him. If you're in the playoffs and there's other quarterbacks that are available because other people dropped some players or whatever, I would probably pick up somebody else. There's probably like a Sam Darnold or Shedeur Sanders or somebody else that's probably available, and I would consider going to get them. He's just somebody who's not himself. The Ravens have really just looked like nothing of who they've typically been. And at this point, I just can't trust to start him. He might get back to his form here in these last 4 weeks. They go and play the Cincinnati Bengals this week, which they're not playing for anything, and their defense really sucks. But they may want to play spoilers to the Ravens and keep them out of the playoffs. Then they go and play the New England Patriots, which is a good team, the Green Bay Packers, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they got a tough stretch down here to finish up these 4 games. And I don't know that Lamar Jackson's going to be somebody that will be fantasy relevant and help you win your leagues. So I'd stay away from him. I wouldn't start him. But that's just my own 2 cents. And then my last creeper that I've got is, sorry, I had his name up and now I've lost it. Is none other than, where did he go? Wow, I don't know how I lost him, but I did. Oh, there it is. Oronde Gadsden. He was somebody that I've been high on lately. Somebody who has kind of been a good rookie emerging, but last week did not really lead to be anything desired, and the week before that either too. So they had their bye week 2 weeks ago, and ever since then it's just been really not involving Oronde Gadsden. He had 2 weeks ago, he had 1 catch for 27 yards. Okay, not bad. Last week he had 1 catch for 7 yards. Tight end 33 2 weeks ago, tight end 52 this week. And this week, I don't even think you can risk starting him at all. At the very least, definitely don't start him. And at this point, you might even need to consider cutting him. He's just somebody who's not going to be efficient for you, somebody who's not going to help you win down the stretch here. They got some tough games coming up, too. They play the Kansas City Chiefs this week. They play the Dallas Cowboys the next week, Houston Texans the week after that, and then wrapping things up at Denver. That is a tough stretch, and I don't think Oronde Gadsden is going to be much helpful down that stretch. And so at this point, I would avoid starting him, avoid having him. Maybe go pick up some other tight end like a Harold Fanner or somebody else. But yeah, those are just my sleepers and creepers this week. But let me know what you think in the comments. Is there anybody that you're targeting on the waiver wire to help you win your fantasy leagues and win your playoff match this week? But yeah, that's all that I've got. So, oh, Tom just posted in the chat. I have Jackson Smith-Njigba, Rashee Rice, and Ja'Marr Chase in a 12-man. Wow. How did you get all 3 of them? That's impressive. I hope you win your league because that'll be good. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But until next time, I'm David, and on behalf of Ryan, thank you guys for watching and listening. It's always a joy to come and talk fantasy football with all of you. And I hope that you all learned something too, because I enjoy talking about this stuff. So yeah, thank you guys again. Our sponsors, as I said at the start, are Inside Edge Network, LVP Productions, and Monster Moment Photography, a husband and wife photography company based out of Cleveland, Ohio. If you're getting engaged or married anytime soon, you want somebody to come and take some photos for you, they are perfect for that. So yeah, I am David, and this has been the Commissioner's Couch podcast, and we'll see you guys next week for more fun and more fantasy football talk.